Welcome to WAGONS West. We are now into the month of June 13th, I think. And tonight we have an awesome guest on tonight. Before we get to that, please remember that I did start a new Substack over at tjkennedyphoto.substack.com. If you'd like to follow along there, I do share weekly articles every Monday morning at 8 o'clock Mountain Time. They do come out there, and you can subscribe for free to follow along. Of course, paid subscribers at $5 a month do get a little bit more. They get weekly articles in full, except for, as opposed to just the excerpts. But even on the free subs, you get one monthly article. So appreciate your support there. And let me just pull this down. So today I'm joined by Mr. Greg Wycliffe. Greg Wycliffe, all the way from Ontario. And I've been a fan of his for a couple years now. I became aware of him, I'd say maybe 2020, 2021, and just really appreciate his content and his take on things and his involvement in culture and politics, and just really excited to have him on. Everyone, please welcome Mr. Greg Wycliffe. Greg, sir.
Hello, TJ. Thank you so much for having me. Very flattering words. Happy to be on the show, man. Happy to be on the show.
Sweet. For anybody that is following on Rumble, I will be reading the Rumble rants at the end of the episode. I have had a habit of missing them, but I've got my head wrapped around that now. So we won't miss your rants. So stay tuned to the end of the show if you want those Rumble rants to be read. And so Greg, coming from Ontario, and from the Den of Vipers that is Toronto, as we were just chatting beforehand, and that's where I come from as well. So I share a lot of your, experience with the big city. And then coming out to northern rural Alberta. So what's it like there now? It's been a couple of years since I've been back.
I've lived in Toronto for 11 years now. And before lockdowns started, I was like starting to get over it. You know, I'd been there for 7 or 8 years. It was kind of starting to lose its appeal a little bit. One of those things where it's like, cost of living, quality of life. There's always a lot of commuting going on. There's always a lot of like busy city bustling going on. And then the lockdowns happened. And part of the appeal of Toronto is like the cultural, the nightlife, cultural events. And then obviously when all of that is shut down, it's like, why the hell am I living in this concrete jungle? Everyone's wearing masks now and scurrying to and fro at the grocery store. Thankfully, I wasn't like, proper downtown, like right in the middle of the concrete jungle. But it's gotten way worse. It's gotten so much worse since then. You can look at the crime rates, the amount of like daytime shootings that happen. You can just look on the subway and the crazy stories from the subway. There's so many, not even outliers at this point, but like, especially grotesque news stories. Like there was one from like maybe a year and a half ago where it was like a group of like young female teenagers like stabbed a guy, and they were like 14 and 15. Like there's just so many things where it's like, this is a bad omen. This is a really bad sign for the city. And of course, how did the city of Toronto respond? They elect Olivia Chow, and everyone's, rubbing their nipples over the fact that Olivia Chow drove her bike to work to City Hall. And it's like, this is not the energy. This is the energy of a Rome who's about to be taken over by barbarians, right? But that's on the kind of the crime side. I can go on a whole other autistic rant about the roads and the bike lanes and how they're trying to make it as painful as possible for people who drive cars or truck drivers who have to move this, Starbucks coffee to and from the Starbucks locations. But of course, I'm not going to go off on that rant because that's, I'm my blood pressure is already rising, and my doctor recommends that I be conscious of that. So
I remember in 2008, 2009, when I lived in Waterdown, which is basically Hamilton. It's like 45 minutes outside of Toronto. No traffic, that is. And I'd drive to work, and it would take about an hour to get to work. But then when I had a girlfriend at the time in the east end of Toronto, I'd be driving to downtown Toronto, and that still took over an hour to get to work from her place. So that's, even back then, before they started cramming more people in there, that was kind of what the traffic was like. Absolutely unbearable. So I can't even imagine what it is now.
Yeah, one thing is they're constantly building condos, so there's a lot of construction, which takes things down to one lane. But I would say the epitome of terrible leadership and just terrible decision making from city planners, they put bike lanes on University Avenue. If you know this University Avenue, it's actually one of the positives in terms of a city design. It's right downtown. It's a north-south street, and it's a big highway right in the middle of downtown. Great design choice. If you're a driver, you know the convenience of University. They added bike lanes and dedicated lanes to parking. There is multiple, I think it's 3 different hospitals on this street. So it's like, it's just really stupid. It's just really dumb. And that's just kind of like a perfect example of like, it's just undeniably terrible decisions. Another one is like, I live near Yonge and Eglinton, and they're building like basically a choke point. They're building this massive concrete like planter, I guess, for a tree, but it's like, you can't put a bike there, can't put a pedestrian there, can't put a car there. And you just eliminated an entire lane of valuable road space, and you've created a choke point again. And you know, unofficially, I think the rule is we're going to try to make this as painful as possible for people who drive. Very similar to how they're trying to make it as painful as possible in Canada for people who are like entrepreneurs or like successful business people who actually make money here, trying to drive them out of the country, it seems, with you know, with all their tax hikes and stuff. Seems kind of simple.
Yeah, it's been a few years since I've been back in Ontario. What is, I mean, I guess, you know, you are where you are, but do you know kind of the general sense of what rent or, you know, well, if you're going to buy a house, what a house costs now on average, or what would an average rent would be for like a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment down there?
I have no idea. I know it's bad. You know, it's bad, man. Trying to find a place too is like a full-time job in and of itself. And it's almost like if you ever want to get a good place, you almost need to be like looking consistently, you know, putting in like an hour at least a day for like at least 2 weeks. If you're in Toronto, like it took me over a month to find my last place. And I found it just when it was listed, and I got in there right away. Like, you know, it was like one of those things where it was like, you have to be on it and jump on it right away, or else you're going to be living in one of these like overpriced little condos that has a fridge about like the fridges in the condos are about this big. Like you can fit like half of a chicken from, what's that place called again? I just
Loblaws or whatever.
No, I was going to say, Swiss Chalet.
Okay.
Like,
Okay.
Half a chicken from Swiss Chalet fits in these condo fridges. But yeah, the city sucks. I don't really know what else to say. Pride's going on in the city right now. I haven't really seen much. You know, maybe there's some crosswalks that I can like, you know, do a burnout on possibly. Yeah.
That's the other thing about Toronto. It's the big time festival city. So especially during the summer, you have Pride Festival, you have your jazz festivals, and I love jazz, so I'm not going to complain about that. But what I will say is when they have these festivals, they shut down all of these streets. So yeah, you have construction, yeah, you have bike lanes, yeah, you have the congestion normally on top of that, but now you have like city blocks that are entirely shut down. And of course, downtown Toronto, like you said, right downtown, they have one-way streets everywhere. So it's just an absolute nightmare logistically to get around. The infrastructure is kind of crazy for such a big city.
Yep, it's pretty wild. Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty well over the city. Especially people work remotely now. So, yeah, I don't know. It's the city. I should probably check out some of these Palestine protests, though. I haven't been to those yet.
That'd be fun. All right. So actually, like I said, just when I was introducing you, I kind of caught wind of you a couple of years ago when a lot of your content started popping up, a lot of your songs and a lot of your political contents and stuff like that. But I'd like to know kind of about you a little bit, kind of where'd you grow up? Like you said, you've been in Toronto for 11 years. So what was kind of up until then? What's early Greg like, young Greg?
Young Greg is a oh wow, solo me. Okay, here we go. So
It's all you, brother.
yeah, I grew up in Kingston, Ontario. I played a lot of sports in high school. I ended up going to university and college for like media studies and radio broadcasting. I was very much like a liberal minded person at the time. Like I wasn't super political, but I always thought like, you know, hey, I'm freedom and love and I'm a hippie and we can all get along and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, gay people, you know, like that was sort of the status quo that I accepted and believed. And yeah, I think a lot of what kind of animates my political sort of drive now is I really like good stuff. And I mean that as in like media. I like a good TV show. I like a good movie. And I guess like more and more, it seems like we can't really have good stuff. We can't really make good stuff, especially with the political correctness and that sort of thing. And that's in a big way, that's kind of what drives me. It's like, it scares the hell out of me when there's like, not only is there political correctness, but they're going to try to take away freedom of speech in Canada. And it's like, man, like we're never going to be able to have like good TV shows ever again. This sucks.
Yeah.
This is terrible. But yeah, my kind of red pill journey was, I'm kind of like a media nerd. Like I learned a lot about how mass media relates to democracy. There's a bunch of mostly useless information in university that I paid a lot of money for. But yeah, I mean, there was also an interesting course where they tell you about who owns the media and how and it makes you kind of start to believe like every single conspiracy ever. Yeah. And it's like, huh, okay. So every conspiracy theory is plausible because 6 corporations own like everything. Anyway, so that was an interesting education, but yeah, I was kind of like a media nerd, and that kind of my red pill moment was the Toronto election in 2018 when Faith Goldie was running.
Oh wow,
yeah. And I was starting to like watch her content online, and she was, you know, she had a very kind of mind-blowing take about the Danforth shooting. And I was like, wow, that's like that's a like very interesting facts about that sort of tragedy that no one's heard about. Yeah. And I started to obviously pay attention to the media bias, and I saw how they treated her during her Toronto campaign. Like they, you know, banned her from debates, and they even stopped her from advertising. So I went to school for radio, and I worked in radio selling advertising. And I heard the same thing from the college that I took the radio program at and the radio station that I worked at. And it was, don't break the CRTC rules or you're in big trouble. The CRTC rules are basically the rules that every radio station needs to abide by. And when this scenario of just like not allowing Faith to like run her radio ads, that was like a huge violation of those rules. I saw that happen. And then I saw no one give a fuck that these rules were broken. And I was like, okay, so if those rules don't apply, then this whole thing is kind of just a facade. Like who knows how deep this corruption goes? Like it was drilled into my head by the college, by the radio station I worked at. You cannot break these rules. And it's like, well, actually we can break the rules if we want to, because we're Bell Media and we're probably in bed with this, that, and the other. And, you know, I started to complain online about it on Reddit. And I also saw the censorship happening on Reddit as well, which is a whole other, if you've ever been like on a Canadian subreddit, you know how horrible it is. Anyway, PPC Maxime Bernier came along and I said, you know what, maybe I should do more than just complain on the internet. So got involved with the party. Long story short, made some connections there. And someone was like, you should run for you. Hey, Greg, you should run as a candidate. And I was like, wow, great idea. So I did that, and that kind of pushed me to fight the misinformation about the party. PPC was branded very effectively as racist in the Canadian media. So I started to make my own videos to combat that information. That's how I got into that. That's what really pushed me and thrust me into YouTube. I was doing some comedy videos, some musical comedy stuff at the same time, just because it was stuff that I was making naturally to express my angst and my smart assery, if you will. And then, yeah, after the campaign, I had like a couple thousand subscribers, and I was like, okay, that's not nothing. And then soon after that, COVID lockdowns happened, and it's like, wow, I have a lot of time on my hands. Maybe I'll continue to post stuff like this online. And then, of course, as you know, the trucker convoy happened. I attended that. I recorded a bunch of interviews there. Now people call me a journalist sometimes. And I've tried to embrace that a little bit and use my broadcasting skills of interviewing people to try and kind of like, share crazy stories that are happening in this country and hopefully try to save it from being completely destroyed or kind of turned into some mutated, globalist experiment.
It's funny that you say, or that you saw kind of the unfairness, right? The rules were being abused or disregarded entirely when it came to Faith Goldie's campaign. She was a Christian and an ethno-nationalist. She said that, and she made no bones about it. And of course, we can't have that. So yeah, she was shut down. And there's a guy on X. I don't know if he's with Tenant Media or True North or something like this, but his name is Wade Stotts. And he did this one rant on politics being basically about friend enemy, like politics being war by other means and being a game of friend enemy. And the left is really good at this. They understand who their friends and who their enemies are, and when they get in power, they use it for that. But on the right, since we kind of believe in the rule of law, we believe in fairness and equality and all those liberal democracy things, when we get into the power, we don't use it as a weapon as they do. And so our side will get stifled. Whereas if we get in, we think, oh, we should listen to them. Oh, we should give them a voice too. Everyone should have a voice. But that seems to be why when the left grabs the reins of power, they get so far ahead. And then when our side managed to get in, we don't really take it anywhere. We just kind of stop it where it's been. And then the next time the left takes the reins again, in media and in politics stuff, then they push the agenda even further. So I just thought it was neat that you kind of, through, I guess, a liberal arts background and more of a liberal leaning worldview, came to the conclusion you did through the means that you did. That's really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I've always kind of disliked dishonesty. And when I see something like, when I saw something like crime happening more often, like at the time of Faith Goldie's election campaign, there had been like a record high like shootings in Toronto. And she was the only candidate talking about that. And I was like, that's okay. Like, she kind of deserves to like have a voice. Like, crime is rising higher than ever. She's talking about this. And it's like, no, we don't want that. And then I guess on top of that, from like my liberal brainwashed mind, I'm like, she's also a young woman. Like, why wouldn't you want to hear what a young woman has to say? And, now it's kind of, clear why that is. But yeah, it's like, okay, this is totally unfair. This isn't allowed. But what you brought up is really, really important. And I think a lot of people, especially on the right, and especially who are kind of like in politics, like don't even like understand almost. Like they don't, they still have this sort of naivety that, what, if we're just more fair and more clever, we can win, and we don't have to stoop to their level. And it's like, well, they call it a bloodstream for a reason. They call it, like it's a nasty place for a reason. And like this isn't like a game of chess. This isn't like shuffleboard we're playing here. Like, this is a fight for power, and that like people are naturally going to do whatever they can, lie, cheat, steal, to get that power. And I don't think it's dishonorable. I don't think it's like, something that is morally wrong necessarily. I think it's just the nature of what politics is. It's nasty. It's dirty. It's, it's dog eat dog. It's cutthroat. And just look at the performance of the right wing, of conservatives. We're getting slaughtered. We're getting crushed. And some people are still getting like that devoured, beaten so badly. And they're like, you know what, if I'm just more honest, if I'm just more fair, if I'm just, you know what, let me give my benefit the enemy of the enemy. Let me give my enemy the benefit of the doubt. And it's like, well, they would never do that to you.
Yeah. That's exactly right. My friend and I, we talk about this all the time. You know, how you can be morally right, maybe, but still be dead. Like, I was right, but you're also dead. And if we gave we'll call it the far left, you gave the communists or the socialists or the communists in liberal clothing, whatever you want to call them, their way, if you gave them power and ultimate control, they'd have you blindfolded in front of a firing squad, and all we'd be doing is sitting there being like, oh, you're a hypocrite, as they pulled the trigger.
Well, actually, you're not even being moral right now, and I'm all like righteous, and it's like, well, you have you're dead now. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it speaks to the good moral character that right-wing conservative people have, but I think they need to warm up to the idea that it is it is sort of like it's not a pretty place to be. It's not a place where, being morally right is going to necessarily like, you know what? That's icing on the cake. If you can win and also be morally right at the same time, then that's great. But it's like, if you want to, actually be effective in politics, you need to realize that in a way it's fun. Politics is like fundamentally manipulative. You're trying to manipulate the masses to do something. You're trying to like lead, and, to speak to the masses, it needs to be something that is not necessarily, well, I don't know. This is getting pretty abstract now, but I think in summary, when you see something that Trudeau's doing, when you see something that the left is doing, and you're like, oh man, that's so disgusting. It's so dishonest. They're being so manipulative. You might be absolutely right, but you also need to recognize what, like, they're winning. They're crushing. They're destroying us in this game of politics. And it's like, oh, well, they're just saying that so more people will support them. Yes, exactly. yeah, that's right. That's kind of the object of the game, actually, to get a large amount of people moving in your direction. And I think that another way to kind of summarize it, another framework, is like negotiation. If you've ever had to negotiate with somebody, let's say, I want to sell you something for $100. Like, it's $100. You only want to pay like 75 for it. Instead of you saying, hey, I'll give you 75 for it. No, you negotiate by saying, I'll give you $50 for it. You go lower. So you're kind of being dishonest, because you're like, I will actually buy that for $75. But if you say that, hey, I'll buy that for 70, then I'm like, fuck you. You're paying at least 80 for it. But like, if you are slightly dishonest and exaggerate what you want and say, no, like, I'm only going to pay you like $40 for this, and then I'll meet you halfway. And this is exactly what actually works in politics. It's not about asking for exactly what you want. It's about asking for way more than what you want and then meeting halfway. And, we could probably apply this to a bunch of Trudeau-isms of what he's asked for and what he's settled for. But like that is really how you actually move the dial, move the needle. And we'll talk about our friends at Diagolon. I think they're doing a great job of just that. I don't think it's realistic for like every person who illegally got in here to be deported. But it's like saying that you want all of that sends a very strong message. And it's like a great negotiation tactic of like, well, why can't we have that? And then now we're actually having a conversation of moving things in that direction. Right? Yeah,
that's actually one of the things I want to talk to you about that too, actually, specific on that issue. And you're right. You push the needle over here. And so maybe, you push it to whatever that extreme is, on the gauge, and maybe you don't get it all the way there. Maybe, you push for 100, maybe you get that 75. But now I'm asking the question, okay, so where is the line? Okay, so no one's going to argue that the illegal migrants should go. Nobody's arguing about that. Nobody's arguing that the criminals should go. But now I'm asking, okay, well, where is the line? And now we're actually starting to have a conversation. The conversation is being had because someone pushed the issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I feel like the most Canadians, like right-wing Canadians, especially in politics, like they have such, I don't know, blinders on. Like they don't really see, um, they don't understand what's possible, what could be possible. Like we're kind of stuck under this like very, very low glass ceiling of Pierre Poilievre, who thinks we can only talk about my taxes. And I love to use Trump as an example of this. He didn't say, hey, we're going to stop migration, mass migration. What did he say?
We're going to build a wall and they're going to pay for it.
Exactly. Exactly. And like, what a crazy vision, what a crazy, like, vision that puts in people's minds. And it was so super effective. And, it's just so sad that there's so many miserable, people who hate Trudeau and are settling for Poilievre with what, bring it home. What I love is like Trudeau, he's not worth the cost. This implies that he's worth anything. This guy is worthless. What do you mean he's not worth the cost? He's fucking like, he should be fucking probably hanging from a tree. Like, what do you mean he's not worth the cost? Like, it's so, man, it's so, there's so much more to be desired there.
There's an interesting inference there. Interesting inference. Trudeau's, he's not worth the cost. So does that mean Poilievre is worth the cost? So we should still pay it, but somebody should just be worth it. Is that what we're saying now?
It's just terrible shit from people who have been in Ottawa for too long. It's just terrible. I mean, the urgency is not there. It's almost like Poilievre's job is to take that genuine frustration and anger and just kind of like massage it and make it feel like it's being spoken to, when in reality, like, there needs to be much more urgency around all these issues, because this place is literally falling apart, and people are leaving, and the demographic change is extreme. It's radical. It's never happened before in history. And that's the very sort of like, it's pretty integral to a nation. We don't have to get into that whole topic, but it's yeah, I mean, if there's mostly Indians in Canada, is it Canada anymore? Not really. It's more like Delhi. It's more like some other place than being Canada. But yeah, I mean, that's why I really like watching Raging Dissident and the Ferryman, because they're the only people in this country, I think, who actually have like the correct degree of urgency on talking about these issues.
You're talking about Poilievre and all the people down there that have been in Ottawa for too long. So before I came out to Alberta, a long time ago, there was a premier here that was kind of universally loved, at least on the conservative side of things. His name was Ralph Klein. And he was just he would talk shit. He'd tell you he'd go have a beer with you at the pub, and then he actually would. Like, that's the kind of guy he was. And everybody in Alberta still has this nostalgia for the Ralph Klein days. But one of the terms he coined was called dome disease. And it reference was the Alberta legislature in Edmonton that has a big dome on top. And it's like, you can go into politics to try and change something. Maybe you have good intentions, but once you get there and you get absorbed into that culture, it changes you, and they call it dome disease. And it's like a whole other world unto itself that's completely out of touch with what's going on around you. And I think that applies not just to Edmonton, that applies for sure in Ottawa, right? They're completely out of touch, right? You remember seeing Pierre walk for all of like fucking 10 minutes with James Top for the photo op. It's like, you have no idea what's going on around you, but here you are for the opportunity it presents to elevate your career as far as you're concerned.
Yeah. And, if more people should realize that, Poilievre's job and the media's job is to convince us that they're doing enough. Like, that's like their whole job, is to convince us that they're actually doing enough. And that's it. Because beyond that, it's just business as usual, as selling out our country bit by bit. Yeah. So Yeah, something needs to change in this country. I think it is changing. I think we're going to kind of see what Toronto or Canada's made. Toronto. Fuck, Toronto's not made of. Well, we're going to see what this country's made out of in the next 5 to 10 years, and I think it's going to be very pivotal.
Yeah. You come from media, and we're talking about politics and how they're just trying to convince us they're doing enough. One of the things where I think, liberals are very good at and the left is very good at is engaging in culture, engaging in media. And conservatives are starting to wake up to that, but we're still very far behind. Like we're losing the culture war in that regard, in getting involved in culture, because that does influence politics. It's not the other way around, in my opinion. And recently, like, you have your Daily Wire, but it's basically like media for boomers. It seems you have a couple of lukewarm takes. You got maybe Matt Walsh is probably the most based one on there, but still nothing earth-shattering or groundbreaking. And here in Canada, you have a couple of YouTubers that are basically, like you just said, they're talk about how crappy Trudeau is. I spat at my camera there. I talk about how shitty Trudeau is, and essentially simping for Poilievre. And they're getting the clicks, they're getting the likes, and but they're not really saying anything like earth-shattering. And like you said, you have guys like Jeremy and Ferry there they're pushing the envelope, and they're really moving the needle. And I just wanted to get your take, I guess, on some of the, I don't want to call them conservative influencers, but I don't know what else to call them, like your plebs and your Sunshine. Mr. Sunshine Baby actually seems to be, following him on Twitter, he seems to be undergoing quite a worldview shift right now. So that's exciting to see. But they just basically talk about politics, talk about how shitty Trudeau is, and talk about how great Pierre is. I don't know. What are your thoughts about the conservative culture in Canada in terms of media?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty small pond, right? Like if you look to the States, they have a whole bunch of it's a very populated ecosystem, alternative media, because it's not just Daily Wire. You also have The Blaze. You also have like a whole bunch of other people who are, really pumping out content consistently. It's a much smaller pond in Canada, and aside from the Diagolon guys, you move further to the center, and you just have a whole bunch of people who are supporting Pierre Poilievre. Because I would lump in those people you mentioned with Rebel News and True North.
Right.
They're effectively all the same. They're concerned about immigration too. They're concerned about the cost of living too. They're concerned about drag time, story hour, tranny indoctrination, etc. too. And they talk about these things, but then they barely ever criticize Poilievre for not, pushing those same values. This guy barely talks about this at all. He doesn't even oppose mass migration. Hello. So it's very interesting how these different platforms get to kind of passively support Poilievre, and kind of like the implication is like, yeah, but he's our best option because he's not Trudeau. Well, also, complaining about things that in the case of mass migration, Pierre Poilievre literally supports. So it's obviously, for anyone who's paying attention and is keeping their eye on the ball, it's very, very frustrating. Not to give these YouTubers an excuse, but I can't, similar to this kind of dome disease, I think people get YouTube disease as well, where they find a niche, they find an audience, and the money starts rolling in. And then they're like, well, how can I just maximize views?
Right.
You maximize views by putting Trudeau in your name, title of the video, Trudeau in the thumbnail of the video. They figured this out. And that's why every fucking video is going to be about, what did Trudeau do this time? Put the like at that. Make sure you watch and subscribe for more. It's like fast food.
Right.
What they create is like this sort of like shit, like terrible popcorn where maybe it feels good, but it's absolutely terrible for you. So yeah, I mean, I don't really think of most of those people as like serious when it comes to like, political commentary. I think they're just kind of gaming an algorithm for money. If they actually gave a fuck, they would probably be willing to stick their neck out more be willing to kind of dive into these topics more, because yeah, I don't know. I heard one of them's leaving the country, right? So that kind of speaks to, mission failed. We'll get him next time. It's like,
Yeah, right.
later. Thanks anyway. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really. Maybe I should give them more. Like maybe I should pay attention more to what they're doing because they do have this like influence. But it's one of those things where, success is the best revenge. So it's like the way I look at it is I'm not gonna bitch about it. Like I'm going to try to just kind of gain more influence and more of a following to try and influence more Canadians to actually, push them down the diagolon pipeline. Cause that's really,
Right.
what they need.
I was, last week I was doing the podcast on self-defense, and I was talking about predatory tactics, right? And so there's one of the tactics a predator will use, and this was in the context of self-defense, but it could be applied politically too, is the charm tactic, right? Charm is a tool I'm using to get something from you. And one of the ways, or one of the predatory tactics people will use is called typecasting, which is, I want something from you. You're not giving me what I want. So I'm going to call you rude. I'm going to call you bigot. I'm going to call you racist. I'm going to call you transphobe. But now you're on your heels trying to defend why you're actually a good person. Right now I have the upper hand. And I found with these, I don't know what you call them, conservative influencers, I guess, especially on Twitter. I don't really bother too much with YouTube. But
call them like normie cons. So call them something a little bit more like derogatory than just
okay. Yeah, I like that. So these normie cons, let's get the libs out. Those kind of guys. Yeah. If you start to say something a little bit more spicy than what they like, that you're going to be called. Like I don't know how many private messages I've got because of talking to Jeremy or Ferry or the rest. Yeah. They're just racist, they're anti-Semitic, they're this, they're that, the other. And I'm like, but they're actually speaking the truth, they're actually being honest, and they're actually doing something other than racking up views and just putting out shit takes. Like it's like they like their 15 minutes in the sun. You get interviewed, you get some of them, maybe some of them want to get close to power, right? Or once they get a little bit of that, either whether they get the views, they get that popularity, they get that validation. When they get that validation and everybody's like clapping like seals around for them, they like that. They don't want to lose that. But I just found it's typecasting. It's like, nothing about me outside of the few private messages we maybe exchanged. But all of a sudden, racist, bigot, anti-Semite, all these things, disgusting, hateful, liar. I'm like, whoa, where did this come from? I think this says more about you than it does about me.
Yeah, and this tactic is old as time, as old as politics itself. And it's so frustrating to see right-wing people to participate in it. Like honestly, a good example is Clyde do something trying to like cancel Ferryman or like cancel Diagolon. And, I don't like, I feel like Clyde does not really understand the harsh reality of politics that much. Because I feel like, the problem is someone like Clyde operates from the liberal brainwashed standpoint, the liberal sense of morality, which is if you say something that might be considered racist, then you are morally bad and should be dismissed. Like if you are operating from that moral standpoint, you've already lost. You've validated everything that Trudeau has built in terms of like being able to morally condemn people he doesn't like. That's effectively, what you do when you enforce the same standard of, that might be called racist, or, well, that's actually saying that about trans people is actually homophobic or actually transphobic. I don't care needs to be the response. Yeah. Anybody who actually wants to help this place out, say, I don't care that you called me one of these names. And it's very sad to see someone like Clyde, who does have a large platform, participating in this exact same moral grandstanding that was popularized and kind of like used as a moral authority by Trudeau. Like this is the whole problem. If you think that we can like save the country and not be racist, you're stupid. you're dumb. Like, you don't understand, you know, where things are headed, what's going on. You don't know your ass from your elbow, in my opinion. You know, but hey, if Clyde, if you're listening and if you want to do a debate about this, I'm more than game to talk about it. But that I watched that kind of back and forth between with Clyde and Ferry, and it was very interesting because, you know, I do feel like Clyde's mindset was a perfect sort of example of the problem, which is people who want to save the country, want to stop Trudeau, but they are still a liberal. Like they're still like brainwashed in the liberal mindset. And I forget if Clyde necessarily said this, but he basically implied like any version of like white people looking out for other white people is like bad. Like any time that like white people think of themselves as like a group is like, holy fuck, like you literally want to kill blacks. Like that's like the actual sort of belief that that like liberal brainwashed people have. And it's like, it's so crazy because you could like show them slides and it's like, hey, these black people are looking out for fellow black people. How do you feel about this? Good. Hey, these Asian people are looking out for fellow Asian people. Good. Jewish people looking out for fellow Jews. Good. Palestine's looking out for fellow good. White people looking out for fellow white people. Ah, no, it's Hitler. No, it's horrible. It's the worst thing ever. It's like, it's sad because there's a lot of people who have been convinced into this thinking. And you know, trying to reverse it is not going to be easy. It's not going to be, it might be fun, but it's not going to be simple. It's going to be painful. And yeah, getting called a racist is like par for the course, obviously.
Yeah. You know? And when you objectify your demons, you rob them of their power. Like Diagon to me is like the embodiment of the Chad yes meme. But are you saying this or you're yes, just owning it. Yeah. You know, when I first got introduced to the community, they would affectionately call each other bigot. Like they just own the term. Okay, yeah, bigot. So now what? And it just robs the word of all of its power. And I just think that's a great tactic. And anyone, by the way, and anyone, I think of Clyde, I think of others that kind of go after them. Rachel Gilmore is another famous one. But she's coming from a clearly left perspective. Like she doesn't make any bones about that. But
they're famous. Oh my god!
if you're trying to enter an internet war with them, you're basically bringing a knife to a gunfight, and it's not going to go well for you.
With Egalon?
Oh yeah. Yeah. You can't doubt me. They're the greatest at memes for sure.
Well, and they're basically like, you can't control me. I don't prescribe to your bullshit rules of political correctness. Yeah. Go fuck yourself. So it's like, yeah, they're going to get destroyed because everybody else literally thinks like, well, if I say the wrong thing, you know, it's so funny to watch people who are not even of the left, but like centrists trying to form their opinion in 2024 and not offend anyone.
Yeah,
like
right.
They will say so much, and well, this and you have to consider that, but and like they do all these excuses, walking on eggshells, and it's like, do you even have an opinion? Like I lost it in that word salad of you trying to like make sure you don't offend anybody.
Yeah,
it's but that's, you know, it is the reason why it's one of the big strengths and opportunities that people like us have. You know, not giving a fuck about political correctness is huge, and you know, you can see it with like a good example would be the popularity of Nick Fuentes and the Groypers in the States. Right. He's a younger guy. He's only in his mid-20s. And if you look on TikTok, kind of in the same vein of like Generation Z or like younger generations, sure, some of them are totally brainwashed, liberal, tranny freaks. But some of them are really not. And they're like, you know, super Christian. They're super want to have a family. They're rejecting political correctness like very automatically, and that gives me a lot of hope because you know, the children are the future, and they're really growing up to. I don't think there's any sort of like special. It's just an organic thing that's happening. It's the same thing of when like the rock and roll era was like sex, drugs, rock and roll, like rejecting the sort of like Christian normative sort of, you know, you need to be Christian, you need to be a good person. It's like now the kids grew up and said, fuck you, I'm going to, you know, pierce my ear and listen to Black Sabbath. I don't know. But the same sort of thing is like, hey, you have to be, now it's like, you have to be gay. You have to be a fucking, you know, you have to love, I don't know, you have to love like black people, whatever. I don't know what it's like from their perspective, but they're basically like, hey, fuck you. I'm going to be racist. You know, I'm going to be a badass. I'm going to do whatever I want. So it is going to be, we actually live in a very exciting time. So I'm actually kind of excited to see what happens next. And it's good. I'm in a good mental state because the pitiful state of our country, I'm kind of finding it funny again. So
that's good.
Yeah, it's good.
I can't remember who said it. It was on Twitter, and I just read it. And of course, you try to find something on Twitter, and good luck finding it unless you've bookmarked it already. But it was the next generation of conservatives are going to make Trump look like moderate. And that's basically the concept. It's just, look what's happening in Europe and what's happening all over the English-speaking world. And yeah, man, the next generation of people coming up on the right is going to shock a lot of people, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's going to be a lot, no offense to like older people, but there's going to be a lot of older people who are like clutching their pearls and be like, oh, I can't believe this young person said this. And yeah, I'm here for it. I'm excited for it. I think it's kind of only natural. I think that this sort of brainwashing of, I mean, in a sense, it's like they're almost trying to guilt trip white people out of existence. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
yeah. Oh yeah.
So like people are waking up to that, and there's obviously going to be some sort of reaction, cause and effect to this, especially as it's becoming a more mainstream, more like socially acceptable thing to talk about and be aware of and to fight back against. And I was on a podcast last night, and I think that we're behind the States by like 8 years or so, but you know, hopefully we can catch up. But I say that because like 2015, 2016 was when Trump was rising to power or got in.
Right. Yeah.
And that's when being anti-immigration was like became a socially acceptable thing of like, I'm going to wear that on my sleeve and like, you know, fuck you, MAGA, like Trump, you know, fuck you. And I think for the first time since I've been alive in Canada, I think that's just starting to happen in terms of like being anti-immigrant is like just now starting to be a socially acceptable thing. So that's,
you can say it without looking around. Yeah. Oh, I'm about to say something.
Well, yeah. And it's like, unfortunately, we had to wait until all the black and brown people here started to complain about the immigrants, and the white people are like, oh, okay, I guess it's okay to talk about it now. But yeah, I mean, it is kind of an exciting time in that sense. We'll see what happens next. There needs to be, well, you know, I'm excited to see Jeremy's tour, for example, and to see kind of like what comes of that. But yeah, this energy, it's got to go somewhere. And I especially with just the weaselly weakness of Pierre Poilievre, you know, something's got to happen on that front. And I think we're going to really see what Canada is made of in the future. So
I like to differentiate, you know, because the left has really set the frame. Like you look at anti-hate, like they just set the frame right there. But I like to differentiate between racism and ethnocentrism, because to me they're different, right? Like if someone, and I'll even leave race out of it, anybody, an intruder comes and breaks into my home, my kids are sleeping, well, I'm going to do whatever I can to end that person because I have to protect my kids. I'm protecting what I love. And wanting to protect, whether it be through white skin or culture, like I don't give a fuck. You protect what you love. You want to preserve what you love. This has nothing to do with an outward motivated hate. This is, I want to preserve what's behind me. I want to preserve the things that I love, the things that I value, the part of my culture and heritage. And that's ethnocentrism, right? I love my culture. I love my people. And like you said, you can hold up that card, black people protecting black, or standing up for black people, brown people standing up for brown people, gay people standing up for gay people. Great. But people have that reaction they've been conditioned to have when white people standing up for white people. But it's not because I hate all you out there. You go do your own thing. I don't give a fuck. But I want to protect my own because I love them and they're my family. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I think the really key part to what you're talking about is the love thing. I love my people and like I prioritize them, and that's kind of where the motivation is coming from. That's I was actually on a podcast last night and we were talking about this, and that's like we need to avoid kind of like the low IQ racism. It's the low IQ racism is kind of inevitable though, because most people are medium to low IQ, so like it's just going to happen. But that is an important distinction, especially for people who are going to try to be, you know, leaders in this sort of like phase of Canada becoming more racially conscious. And that is like love over fear and resentment.
Yeah.
Like it needs to be because, like you said, we love our people, we love our culture, and we want to protect that. That definitely needs to be the sort of tip of the spear and like the main thing that drives us. Because if it's kind of more based on the fear and the resentment of I don't like these brown people and like I don't want these people around, like you can feel that it's different. It has a different energy. It comes across differently. And you know, it's honestly like I'm sure I felt that way before. What's his name? Shane Gillis, the comedian, has a hilarious bit on that. Whereas like people like to say they're not racist. They're not racist. It's like, it's kind of like hunger. You know, it's like, yeah, you're not racist right now. But when a cheeseburger cuts you off in traffic, it's like, fuck, I'm really fucking racist right now. But
yeah, dude.
yeah, but great bit. But yeah, like it is important to kind of like stay in touch with that, because I think that especially when people do get overwhelmed by everything that's happening and, you know, they get black pilled, as they say, it is easy to kind of fall into the sort of fear and resentment part of it. And I think it's important to try and check yourself if that's happening and kind of focus on the love thing. Like what do we want for our country? Like I want this for my country. I love this about my country, about my people, blah, blah, blah. That is an important distinction. However, one thing I will say about what you said before is, you're like, I'm not racist. I'm like, I'm ethnocentric. I at this point, I don't think you should like resist the label, because like they just say like, yeah, sure, I'm racist. Like, I don't care.
Right.
Because I do agree with you. But the thing is, the word racist has kind of changed. Because like the word racist before used to mean being this sort of like vile person who was filled with that hatred and resentment of what I'm talking about. Like, no, like fuck these blacks, like get them the fuck out. And like, that was the whole thing that they were like focused on. And it was like, kind of like, whoa, you're going like really far out of your way to hate these people. Whereas now racist is like defines anything having to do with race that makes people uncomfortable. Right. So this whole conversation has been racist, Kennedy, like based on the new definition of racist. And like, you know, I don't agree with it, but it's like, that's kind of where the popular culture and use of the word is at. So it's like, you might as well just be like, yeah, I guess I'm racist. Like, I love this about this. I love my people, whatever. You're going to call me racist anyway. So, you know, go fuck yourself. And I say that because if you start to go off about, hey, I'm actually ethnocentric, then you kind of like sound like a weird racist person. You know what I mean? Like, it's better to say like, hey, fuck you. Like, I'm racist. I don't care. Like, I love my family, you know, like figure it out, you know?
And actually, well, yeah, it's back to your point of that, Chad. Yes. Like just owning it. Like you rob the words of their power when you're not afraid to wear it. Okay. So now what? Yeah. Like I'm racist.
You got nothing.
Great.
Your weapon is useless against me. Yes, I am racist. Okay. And
exactly. One thing I wanted to talk to you about, because I saw a couple of your videos you made, your shorts, I guess we'll call them, your reels or whatever, where you made a couple of phone calls. And I'll pull this up on X here. I just want to make sure I can share the audio. I have such a bad habit of sharing windows here and not sharing the audio. So let me know if you can hear this. I'm going to go down to, here we go. So for those of you, just for context here, I'll pause this. For context here, the House of Commons, government officials, MPs have been found to have been colluding with foreign nationals, basically against the interests of Canadians, against the interests of Canada. And can you see this, by the way, Greg?
Yes.
Okay, good.
We're not going to watch the whole thing, are we? It's like 7 minutes.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, maybe we could just talk about it then. But you made one call here to the RCMP, and you made one call to Crime Stoppers, which was awesome. And you basically wanted to report the crime. Hey, well, you know what? I'm not going to fucking do a terrible job of telling a story. I'll let you kind of
sure
explain what you did there. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I was driving back from church actually last Sunday, and I saw it was in an area I'm not usually in. It's like north of the city, and I saw a Crime Stoppers billboard, and I was like, "Huh, that'd be funny." Like I should just call Crime Stoppers and be like, "Hey, I think there might be like treason in Parliament. Can you look into this crime? Like, can you stop this crime? It's treason. You know, like have you heard of this?" So yeah, that was like funny. It's just a dumb idea. And I'm like, okay, that's good. Like I thought for me, I'm like, that's easy content. I'll just record this phone call and then post it. And thankfully the woman on the phone was like pretty like kind of funny about it. And she's like, yeah, my favorite part was like, yeah, government officials committing treason. Like, I don't think we like look into that. But yeah, and then I thought, you know what? Fuck it. Let's just call the RCMP too. And I'm glad I did. It was a very uncomfortable phone call. Very kind of depressing too, because it's like I am trying to coach these guys to give a fuck. I'm trying to coach these guys. I'm explaining to them the situation. And it was like pulling teeth to try and get RCMP officers to give a fuck about the potential of treason in the House of Commons. Like it was very like depressing, but I'm also glad I did it because it's like, at least I made them like uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Like at least I made them have to talk to the public and answer my questions and have to fucking deal with me. Like at least I made them fucking do something, even if it's just talking to me for fucking like 8 minutes. Like at least I actually, I don't know, caused a little bit of pain in their lives because, yeah, if you're a patriot Canadian, if you're a Canadian who gives a fuck about this place, we're in a lot of like pain right now, you know, and it feels like we can't fucking go anywhere other than watch fucking Jeremy McKenzie rant on his fucking webcam. Like that's the only place we can go to fucking feel like good about what the fuck is happening right now.
And it's good. You said it's easy content for you, and at least you had made them have an uncomfortable conversation. But the beautiful part about that is now that content is out there. And I mean, not that the RCMP is short of black eyes, but you've given them yet another one that they're going to have to deal with. And, you know, they should feel that shame, and they should be faced with it every single day of their lives that they wear that uniform, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, I was reading some of the comments and it really speaks to hopefully a cultural shift that can happen in this country. But people are like, wow, like people were like, you know, it is the comment section. I try not to look too much into it, but there were a lot of comments who were like, whoa, like you're a hero, but basically being like, wow, like great work. You know, like, wow, like you're doing so much. And it's like, guys, I just made a phone call. You know what I mean? Like this is not, you know, it's not that much effort to do that. Like you know, you could do that sort of thing. And I guess like the more I've turned it over in my head, like watching the decay of our country over the past like 5 years, watching this all happen, what I keep turning over in my head is like, what the fuck is wrong with Canadians? Like what is missing? And like, obviously I compare it to the States because there's this sort of autonomy that exists in the States. This sort of like my First Amendment, my freedom, like no one's going to take that away from me. They have a lot of like passion here that surrounds this sort of, you know, core belief of what the country is all about. And it really politically activates them. It makes them very sensitive to this stuff. And there's a lot of patriots down there who will be like, no, like that's against our First Amendment. And people fucking get out of their couches and like they're ready to fucking say something, do something, like get activated about it. And then over here in Canada, you know, it's like you'll show them, hey, there might be treason going on. Hey, like, you know, they're replacing us in their own country. Like, you know, like, hey, they're like indoctrinating children. Look at this. And then you get this response of, oh, geez, hey. What are we gonna do about that? Oh gosh, jeez. And it's like, what is that? How do we change that? How do we change that? Like kind of, oh geez, like I'm just gonna finish my 6-pack to we got to fucking do something about this. Like we can't let them get away with this. We need, like, and I think America has like the foundational myths, because like we really like to connect ourselves, our identity to like these myths, right? Like the States now they have Trump, like they created MAGA and Trump as like part of this myth of what it means to be American. And that's connected to the First Amendment, obviously. And it's like, well, what do we have here? What do we have to hold on to? Like it's very flimsy what we have to hold on to here. It's like it's a fucking hockey stick, maple syrup. Fuck, like we don't got that much to hang on to. Like I feel like even like Vimy Ridge or something like this, like that already feels like a reach. I'm not saying it's like a genuine thing, but it's like we need things that are more closer and like foundational and powerful to kind of like activate ourselves to kind of keep this place together. Because if we don't have that, like, and I'm sure you already know what I mean. Like this place is already falling apart. And I really feel like it comes down to men not actually identifying with the country anymore.
Yeah.
And this is actually a phrase that I've wanted to popularize. I was thinking about this while I had some time off from content, but it's like, there's so many people where it's like, you don't even care about the country. You care about your bank account.
Yeah.
Like that's I feel like there's so many people out there where that's what it boils down to.
That's exactly right. I keep talking to my one friend, much smarter than I am, and he was saying, things happen gradually, but then all at once. And you can look out your window, and in the States, you got like 10x the population, so they see it more apparent. But outside of the odd church here and there, I'm not looking out the window and seeing anything on fire. Houses aren't being broken into and things being stolen here in my town. Things are generally comfortable. Right here, we're distracted with the Oilers and the playoffs and this and that. And things haven't gotten bad enough for people. But at some point, like you said, in the next 5-10 years, there's going to be a breaking point where everything's going to come crumbling down all at once. And it'll be too late, but then people will care. But we're not there yet. They're too comfortable right now. Like you said, they care more about their bank account than their country, because things for us are comfortable, because outside of like rising gas prices and grocery prices, things aren't that bad. They're not that bad yet. But it's like we're standing on the beach looking at the tsunami and being like, oh, look at the water, and not doing anything about it.
Yeah. I mean, I do agree that like, things aren't bad enough yet for people to care. And I guess the real question is, what can people like us do to catch those people when they're ready to kind of, wake up to reality? How do we kind of catch those people and like push them in the right direction to kind of just like immediately get on the right side of things, in the right position, saying the right things, believing the right things? I don't necessarily agree though with this, or at least like, I think I like to push back on this point that everything's going to kind of crumble out all at once. Cause I don't think that's going to happen. Cause I don't think that's in, I feel like this is a controlled demolition of what they're trying to do, right? They're trying to slowly dismantle the country. They're making sure all the rich people leave. It's like, okay, we're raising taxes. So if you're like a smart businessman, like time to leave. And like, they're kind of doing all these things to slowly siphon money out of the public through taxes and all this. And, they because it's a slow and controlled thing, people aren't waking up as much as they could. So I think it's actually in their best interest to not have it crumble all at once. And, to bring up the topic of civil war, which is something that people have been talking about more specifically in the States though,
right.
I feel like if you go to certain city centers in America, it's already like that. You can already just steal stuff. Like you can already just like go into, I don't know the specific places and laws. It's probably LA or something, but it's like, there's literally laws where it's like, okay, we're going to just let people shoplift, and I feel like it's going to be a slow decay like that, where slowly but surely the police force starts to enforce the law less, and more criminal behavior starts to kind of just start to slowly but surely run rampant. And then sure, maybe there's going to be like more violent confrontations that happen. But in terms of this official, like, okay, beep, beep, like, the Civil War has started. These are the two sides. Like, I don't think it's going to happen that way. I think it's going to continue to be a slow decay, more criminal behavior, more violence, sure, more death. Maybe there'll be like vigilantes trying to protect themselves or protect innocent lives. And like, but I guess my point is it's just going to, it's not going to be like, hey, like this next on CBC News, the Civil War continues. No. It's going to be like, it's going to be like, no. There's like, there's a horrible violent occurrence that happened. Everything else is fine, by the way. Like it's just like there seems to be this other totally random event that happened to be violent. But does that make sense? Like they're not gonna. It's not going to be this. It's going to be a slow decay. And I think it's our job to try and fast track people, to radicalize them, to show them what's actually happening, and try to just kind of get them on board with like a concrete solution. And I think there's that can be its own conversation of like what the solution is. I'm kind of the mind that there does need to be a political solution. And I know that people maybe don't like to hear that all the time, but it's like at the end of the day, there are going to be power structures, always, no matter what happens. And what the nature of politics is getting a large enough group of people moving in the same direction, and then securing power and ensuring that we get what we want to help rule the nation or whatever. And I don't know. There's value in professional organization, like a lot.
Even if we did devolve into some like anarchist wet dream or something where it was like some violent coup, civil war, whatever, even if everything disintegrated, then you're going to have to rebuild something. You're going to need some sort of structure, some sort of hierarchy. So it might not look like the type of parliament system we have, but you're going to have to form some sort of government, to keep things going, and you're right. What does that look like? I don't know, but there's got to be something. And, I also,
and I just wanted to jump in there real quick. Ideas that come from Diagolon or that are popular in Diagolon, they're becoming popular with regular Canadians. Mm-hmm. There's just like a disconnect. There's just like, they don't know about Diagolon or maybe they're not like fully there, but it's like there really is a lot of commonalities between your average frustrated Canadian who's like apolitical, like doesn't even follow politics, and things that Jeremy and Ferryman say. Like there's a lot of commonalities there, and it's just a matter of kind of like cracking that code and being able to kind of like slowly reach these people and give them a sort of like vehicle to all move together on.
I also think, and I it holds true. Everything rises and falls in relationships. So it could be a Jeremy or a Ferryman. To the average person watching, there's some internet personality, right? They run a podcast, but their friend they go hang out with, their coworker, their whatever the case is, so those real life relationships, and which is something they encourage you to do, right? Their tribe and train is the MO right now. Find your people, and get real life relationships. And it's through those real life relationships that a real trust is built, and that you can actually have a profound effect on somebody's life and shift their worldview, and you're creating a safe place, sort of use the gay term, but a safe place for those worldviews, for those opinions, right? And when they get to know you as a person, they know that you're not some freak, that you're just another citizen just like them that wants the best for your family and your kids just like them. And, that's the way I think that real change happens. You need people to go out there, like you said, to be the tip of the spear, to put the ideas out there, to get them into to get them into the zeitgeist, right? You said normal Canadians are starting to think the same things that Diagolon thinks. They're just not aware of them. But you also need to build those real life in-person relationships. I think that's key.
Yeah, I agree. I think that sometimes people online can like to butt heads and say, no, this is the answer. No, that's the answer. And I think ultimately it's a combination. I think it is a combination of the kind of more prepper side of things of like, connect with your community, learn to live off the land. Like, I think there's definitely a lot of value in that. But I also don't think that's like the only answer either. I think the other answer is to continue to form, professional organizations or sort of like, creating meaningful propaganda and fighting the propaganda war. Like there's some great people who have, I don't know if they're from Diagolon, Wiretap Media, some other people, Derek Rance has been like putting together some good pieces. That's huge. Like that stuff is huge. And especially because the truth is on our side, especially because like the righteousness is on our side. If we can continue to focus on making propaganda messages like that, like that shit's powerful. That shit's very powerful. And, like I see the online thing as a huge part of the war as well. Although it's harder, it's harder because of, getting canceled or getting our stuff banned, blah, blah, blah. Sure. But it's still when something's successful online and it's like wildfire, like that's like sending out a nuke, like it can be very, very powerful.
And going back to what you said at the beginning of our interview, you said, you're appreciator of good media, good TV shows, good movies, good art, good culture that way. And we have a competency crisis, right? I'm not a big Star Wars fan. I'm more of a Star Trek guy, but nerd, I know. But the new Star Wars Acolyte, there's like, I have not seen it. I've just seen like screenshots of people complaining about it, about how it's super woke, like all the Disney Star Wars stuff. And there's this one scene I saw where there's like a fire outside in space, which should be impossible. So there's like a competency crisis. People are doing stupid shit. So if you can be right-minded, and if you can put out good quality media, that's good shit, you're going to help win that culture war, right? And I think you're right. I think there's a synergy between the real life, but also getting that content out there, good content, shit that is actually good, that is informative, that is entertaining, all of the above, right? And memes. Diagon's great with memes.
Maybe there's a way to fast track that, to get the attention of a Star Wars fanboy and be like, aren't you tired of this Star Wars content being shit and not making sense? It's because of Joe Biden and the left. Like, we need to stop him if you want your Star Wars to be better content.
Right.
He's right. That's the dream. That's the dream, to get the Star Wars fanboys online, get them radicalize the guys with Funko Pops on the wall. Then it's totally over.
Yeah. And also, a little bit off topic from that, but we obviously, a lot of the things being attacked are the things that would stabilize us, right? One of those things being masculinity. It's not just white people that are the devil, it's white men that are like the super devils. And so there's a lack of male leadership, of real male leadership, of masculine leadership. And so if you can just embody that masculine energy, be an example for your kids, be an example for your neighbors, be an example for the people around you of what a real man should be: strong, masculine, with integrity, honest, truth speaking. Those are the type of things that are going to go a long way, because those are the things that people are looking for, whether or not they realize it.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. That's a really, I think it's reflective of, there's there is a natural order to things. There is a hierarchy. I haven't done it. There's a natural hierarchy to things, and a lot of kind of what they're pushing is trying to subvert and pervert that. And I honestly, like, personally, I've started to call myself a Christian. I'm not like a very good Christian. I haven't like read the Bible fully, but it's just kind of like I've started to kind of gravitate towards it, because I feel like there is a sort of personal war that goes on within all of us, to not to be lazy, not be sinful. And I think when we win that war, especially as a man, it kind of brings us towards our masculine qualities of not only being able to win our personal war, but to eventually, take care of ourselves, but to eventually take care of others as well, and to help lift others up as well. And I think that, it's very easy to turn on a webcam and bitch at other people and be like, it's because of them. It's their problem. Fuck them. But also, you know, you got to clean your room first. You know, you got to take care of your own personal inner war first and try to dominate yourself first. Anyway, I personally kind of like the Christian version of that, which is like kind of conquering the only evil within yourself to do better. But yeah, and it also does connect to the, you know, focusing on what you love, what you want in the world, as opposed to being possessed by resentment and hatred. Because that kind of that's kind of like a sinful thing that kind of has you focusing on negativity as opposed to kind of like focusing on what you love and what you want to positively influence, and just kind of like better focusing your energy, I think.
I find it fascinating that you say that at this point. I from Ontario, but came out to Bible college actually in Edmonton, and then went to China on missions trips, and then shortly thereafter kind of
went to what trips?
Missions trips in China. So I went and worked with the underground church there, brought Bibles to them, taught at a kindergarten there. We did like Bible themed lessons without the express, you know, saying the words, right? Like listen to your parents, tell the truth, like principles, Christian principles, but not, you know, Jesus said or Bible this, because
you did this in China.
Yeah, man. 2000 to 2002. I went back over 3 years, lived there for 6 months over the course of the 3 years. And I remember the 1 year, my second year there, we did smuggle some Bibles to an underground church, because there's the two churches in China. There's the government sponsored church, which is very like regulated and monitored. And then there's the underground church, which is the evangelical church. And they have to kind of practice in secret. And, you know, so we traveled for several hours away to some like beach.
So there's like a Chinese government approved Christian church.
Correct. Yeah. Being a Christian isn't illegal, but proselytizing is. But if you're going to listen to what the Bible says and try to spread the gospel, spread the good news, that's illegal there. So the people that want to be kind of listen to the Bible in that regard, that would be criminalized. And so we went and gave them like craft supplies for their kids' programs, gave them some Bibles, threw them some money to help fund their efforts there. Cool. And so we did that over the course of 3 years. But after college, coming back to Canada, probably from 2000, I would say 2007 to just before coming out to Alberta, I was like militant atheist. I did a hard swing. And just looking back on my life, I really see a divine hand, and I can't really say that I'm a Christian, but I'm really being pulled in a direction. We'll say that. But because I spent as much time in Bible college pursuing a Bachelor of Theology and really studying the Bible, there's the one Bible phrase that really is burned into my heart, which is James 4:17, which is, anyone then who knows the good that he ought to do and he doesn't do it, that's a sin for him. And you know, I think, Christian or not, I think that's just a good principle to live by.
Nice. That was which one was that? That was, you said James 7:11.
James 4:17.
4:17.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. I think I've covered everything I want to talk about tonight, but if there's anything else you want to bring up, please do.
We can talk about one last thing. I think it's kind of interesting. Yeah. It's over the past 6 months, I haven't really been doing much content. I was actually working up north in cottage country doing I was a laborer on a job site, so like working like blue collar stuff. And nice. I don't know, I just like I found it so spiritually fulfilling, first of all, just kind of like be working with my hands. And I don't know, I've so many thoughts and feelings about blue collar work now. I respected them before, but now it's like, man, these people who do this day in and day out are like literally what make this country work.
Yeah.
And they get like no respect. They get like not nearly enough. They don't get sung nearly enough praises for the work that they do. And more importantly, they get completely shat on and disrespected on a regular basis by these bureaucratic white collar Ottawa people. Yeah. And it really disgusts me. And I don't know, I guess I don't know where I'm kind of going with this, but I guess like that kind of like experience has only kind of further emboldened my kind of worldview. And yeah, because I really want to, like, you know, do good for people like that who are actually doing the hard work, and who are, I don't know, like worthy of fighting for, I guess, you know?
Yeah. I wrote I have a Substack article coming out Monday morning, actually, that touches on this. So it's funny that you bring it up now. Talking about 4 classifications of people in society, and I break it down as creators, producers, consumers, and destroyers on a Pareto distribution. And I'd class as blue collars as the producers. Like, maybe you didn't invent the technology that gets the natural gas out of the ground and in the pipe, but you're the one that sure makes sure it keeps happening. You're the one that keeps the lights on. You're the one that makes sure the garbage is out of the streets. You're the one that makes sure when my toilet's plugged, you come and fix it. You're the one that fixes my car. You're the one that makes sure my fridge is running. You're the one that makes sure that the internet's connected. You're the one that builds the fucking buildings and the houses we live in. Like, if it wasn't for those producers, if it wasn't for those blue collar people, we would, we'd be completely destroyed. We'd be completely lost. And so they definitely are the lifeblood of our society, and definitely deserve all the respect and all the praise.
Yeah. And the other thing I noticed is they agree with us. You know, they're very much like white collar or blue collar people are very much more of the mind of Diagolon. Like I was working with these guys, and, you know, I would kind of like bring up politics here and there, kind of like, you know, poke them to see kind of how they react to some of my shit. And I remember thinking to myself, these guys are more racist than me. These guys are more sexist than I am. Damn, you know. But yeah, I don't know. I found that kind of, again, like very like reassuring of you know, a lot of the people I agree with us. I agree with the far right.
Right.
So yeah, which is all the more reason to kind of just really be emboldened and be brave and really say what's on our mind. Because although there's going to be the Clyde do some things who say, hey, no, you can't do that. Trudeau's going to call you a racist. He's going to call you a Nazi. You're not allowed to say what's on your mind. Yeah, like, people are tired of that. People are really tired of that. And all it takes is someone, you know, like Trump to show up and be like, we're going to build a wall. They're racists, or sorry, they're rapists. You know, they're bringing drugs. You know, it's sure. I mean, it takes someone like that to show up, be made fun of by the media, be slandered by the media, be like trying to have your life destroyed over and over again, but continually telling the truth over and over again, day in, day out, and saying, I don't care. And then eventually the people fall in line. They're like, I love this guy. I like this guy. I agree with this guy. So yeah.
I like that he didn't apologize too, right? Like, he came out and, when they tried to get him with that, oh, you can just go right up to grab him by the pussy. And they wanted to, you know, they tried to like sink him for that. And what did he say? He said, it's just locker room talk. Like, he didn't, there's no apology whatsoever. And people really were, like, some people hated him for it, but I mean, the worst thing he could have done would be to apologize for that. Then they would have had him.
Yeah. Yeah. And back to kind of what we were saying earlier about how you kind of need to embrace the shittiness of politics. That's a great example. That's a great example. You know, a lot of people who are in Canadian politics on the right wing, I feel like they have this sort of Ottawa bubble understanding of how politics works. So it's like, what's the group studies? Was it not case study? What do they call it again? They call it like a workshop. We need to workshop this opinion or that opinion or this phrase or that phrase. What's popular? What's trending? What do people think? How do we try to, you know, market ourselves properly? Blah, blah, blah. And like, to be fair, part of it is that you do need to kind of consider that. But a huge side of it that people do not consider is what I like to call like the psychology of leadership, the psychology of how someone responds to someone like Trump. I like this guy. He's charismatic. He made fun of that person and I thought it was funny and I like them. You know, that is really the stuff that like a good way to summarize. People will be like, I can't, Trump is this cult of personality. Oh no. Or people will even say that about Max Bernier. They'll say, oh, he has this cult of personality. You should want that. You should want that.
Yeah.
You should want the masses obsessed with you and loyal to you, even if you do something wrong, whatever. But like, that's really where the power lies. And people say, oh, well, Trudeau this, Trudeau that. He's brainwashed these people. It's like, yeah, and it's powerful. And you kind of need to respect that. We need to create that for ourselves. And we're not going to do that by constantly apologizing and constantly this and constantly that. We need to do that by being like cool and attractive and funny and
likable.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. And for that reason, I think a lot of people, especially like the political autists who like follow Canadian politics a lot, it's like they don't get that part of it. Like they don't get the whole like popularity aspect of it. Which is why we make fun of Pierre Poilievre. Like we see that he lacks that. He tries so hard. He takes his
performative.
He tries to look like
Yeah.
Trudeau. And it's like, this guy is fucking lame. First of all, he's not saying the right stuff. He disavowed Jeremy and he's fucking lame. Okay.
Yeah.
Like he's not saving the country. He's fucking, it's not good enough.
He's definitely saving himself, or so he thinks.
Yeah, well, I mean, it makes sense. On the other hand, after shitting on Poilievre, he also is doing a lot of things very well. He is, creating good propaganda. He's catering to these normie cons in this country. He's exploiting the whole like, oh, Trudeau bad thing. So like he is doing a lot of things really well, and you kind of have to respect him for that. But I'm interested in like saving the country and like actually turning this place around. So I fucking hate his guts because he's not doing that at all. He's kind of just encouraging the same status quo for his turn at the trough. So
I am 100% in agreement with you there, man.
Yeah. Hey, well, I should probably get going here. Thanks so much for having me.
I appreciate you coming on, Greg. I'll let you go, and I'm going to go on read some Rumble rants. So I appreciate your time, man.
Awesome. Well, is there a lot of Rumble rants? Is there any?
Let me go take a peek. I got Uncle Kenny says, thanks for the show. Let me just do a refresh here to see if I got any others coming in. Uncle Kenny, thanks for the show. Thanks, Uncle Kenny. Really appreciate you. And got one today. So, hey, that's one more than the other show. So that's great. Appreciate it. If you guys do want to support the show, you can also do so at buymecoffee.com/tjkennedyphoto. I do drink a lot of coffee, so it will probably actually go to the actual thing it is named for. So I appreciate that. And I'll let Greg go. Before I do, please don't forget this summer, as we mentioned, there's the Road Rage Terror Tour coming to a city or town near you across Canada. And I'm just going to play a little trailer for you guys. And I'll play this trailer, Greg, and I'll let you go, okay?
Sounds good.
I would like to see our own January 6th event. See some of those truckers plow right through that 16-foot wall. None of us, of course. I just like to see it.
Have you heard about the legend of Diagolon?
Extremist white nationalist organizations like Diagolon.
Diagolon is a fictional meme that caused the government of Canada to invoke the War Measures Act.
What the hell is a Diagolon?
Diagolon hurt my feelings once on Twitter.
Diagolon is the Canada Spy Agency's favorite TV show. Diagolon. Even the people who hate them can't stop watching. Justin Trudeau labeled them anti-government. That just means a good time.
I reject categorically the endorsement and the support of Diagolon and of Alex Jones.
We're all in this together. It's a global war on everybody, on all free people, and anybody that just wants to live their lives and be free, and they're coming after all of us.
We're talking about a group that is organized, agile, with a steel resolve.
Canada's biggest bigots are going on tour. Diagolon is a group of white straight Canadians who started noticing stuff, then got labeled far-right extremist bigot Nazis for speaking out about it. Diagolon is coming to a Canadian city near you. Get your tickets at the Griff Shop before it's too late. Be afraid. Be very afraid.
I'm in danger.
There you go. So, yeah. I'll see whoever's coming. I'll see you at the Edmonton and Calgary show. So I'll be excited to meet some of the community there. And if you're in any of the other provinces, make sure you grab your tickets up before they sell out, which they are sure to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Get your tickets to the Rage Tour, guys. You saw the ad. Holy crap.
Yeah, amazing. All right, man. And I appreciate you coming on. And yeah, we'll catch up another time. I can't even speak English now. It's been a while. It's been a while since I had food in my face, so I think I'll go get some of that.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me, TJ. So later. Talk to you later.
Cheers, my man.
Bye.